Maybe. There we go.
All right. Marijuana. It's not legal. You can get a medical card. You can buy it from Joe Schmo, downtown Bridge Street. And now potentially it's going to be legal. Is that good? Is it bad? We're going to talk about that. Everybody, welcome to The Cut. I'm Tom Roth. Anthony Aquindo with me. We're back, and we're going to hop into these issues right now with another issue with Israel and the Palestine conflict.
Which side of the conflict do you stand on?
All this and more on this episode of The Cut. Welcome in. Let's get right into it.
Let's do it, Tom. Well, first of all, good to see you. It's been a while.
Good to see you. Yeah.
It's been a little while since we've done this.
Yeah, life happens. Hopefully everything's going well.
It is, man. I can't complain. Just busy, life, work, things like that.
Life and work.
But
as we get closer to the election, that's going to happen. I believe it's November 10th. Is it November
7th? I believe it's the 7th, bro.
Let's see. When is
Could be
that?
wrong.
November 7th.
November 7th.
Okay. October 10th was the deadline for early voting registration.
Okay.
My bad. Okay. So a hot button issue on the ballot in Ohio is the legalization of marijuana on the statewide level.
Recreationally.
Recreational.
We already have it medically.
Already have it medically.
Yes.
So now, in theory, with marijuana becoming legal in the state of Ohio, it is going to be available to anyone, I'm assuming, over the age of 21, just like alcohol and tobacco now.
That's the way I understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
21.
So, I mean, a lot of things to unpack in that regard. You have already the medical side of it. And I think one of the things that people are looking forward to with marijuana legalization would be the access, right? Being able to access it freely, not have it kind of in the shadows, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like you could just go purchase and you're good to go.
Personally, I think it's the stigmatization of
Sure.
marijuana in general. I think we're, as a country, I mean, over the last 15 years or so, you've seen a lot of states legalize it for medical use, recreational use. So that you can see the stigma of it starting to
Go down.
decrease, right? So, and I think that's kind of where we're headed. I think obviously a lot of states have already picked it up. I think we're going to see more and more states pick it up. And then I think eventually there will be a push for it to be recreational on a legal level, on a federal level.
Federally legal.
Right. So I think that's kind of where we're headed. But I mean, this isn't the first time that this has been on the ballot.
Oh no, and if it doesn't pass, it won't be the last time that it's on the ballot.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be a forever fight until it's actually legal. And the big thing about legalizing it, especially now, is it's not like it's going to be a constitutional change.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically going to be a law or a decriminalization of it.
Mm-hmm.
So if at any point in the future they want to appeal it and revoke the law, it'll be able to do easier than it would be if it was in the Constitution for Ohio.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, so I mean, I guess we should talk about like the pros and cons of recreational use, or at least what's mentioned out there for the people who are proponents and opponents of the legalization. And I think the first one we should start with. Well, let's see. Do we want to start with the cons or the pros first?
I think anytime you talk about marijuana being legalized, I think that you're going to have older people ask about safety, right? Like, is this safe? Is it a good idea because kids are going to have access to this now? Let's just be completely candid. We were 15 once, right? And alcohol is only legal to 21 and over.
Correct.
Cigarettes, chew, all that, 18 and over, right?
At that time.
Right. Now it's 21. And what did you want when you were 20 when you were 15. You weren't looking for Coors Light, you weren't looking for Bud Light, but you were looking for, Smirnoff, maybe Zima. I'm showing my age a little bit, but like Jack and Coke. I really wasn't interested in cigarettes, but I was interested in like Skull Cherry, Skull Peach, stuff that had a fruity connotation to it.
Hmm.
And now with like the medical world, you see like the gummies, you see Keef Cat,
I
which
don't
is
know what that
so
is, but
Keef Cat is packaged like a Kit Kat, right?
oh,
It's
okay, so it's a
it's a
candy.
medicated Kit Kat.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're
Um,
saying like
Buddha Finger
more
is a
desirable
butter.
common foods
Yeah,
mixed with some marijuana.
marijuana. So kids are going to obviously be attracted to that, right? They're going to want that. Oh yeah, that looks cool. You know what I mean? Like so I see the hesitance because is it safe? Well, what I can tell you is I think a pro of marijuana legalization is going to be the very strict marketing campaigns. I think it's going to be everything's in a lab, right? So they have grow stations where they grow this marijuana from seedling to full on plant, right? So it's all regulated. It's all at the state level. Um they have so there's different brands of marijuana, right? So you have Clutch, you have Firelands, you have Eden's Trees. That's just a couple of them. Aura. These are not just brands, but they also grow their marijuana. They also oversee every bit of it. Okay.
Okay.
So I think a very good thing about making marijuana legal is that you give these companies that at the medical level are breeding these, they are versed in it at this point, right? Marijuana has been legal at a medical level for I think 2 or 3 years in Ohio now.
Right.
So they know their process, they have the right people in place, and not any Joe Schmo can go work there, man. Like you have to go to a cannabis college to learn how to do this stuff.
You're saying to sell it or to grow it?
Both.
Okay.
Okay. So you're not just getting, a guy that just thinks, oh, yeah, marijuana's cool. I'm going to go work there. You know what I mean? Like they have
Right.
to
So you're
know
saying
these
like
things.
somebody's not growing this in their basement or in their
Correct.
attic.
Correct.
Right.
So I think a pro for that is not just getting these companies that have grown this stuff already, but now they're able to do more, right? Because now at the medical level, let's say there's 10 of us in a room, maybe 5 of us have access to a medical card, right? So they're catering to the 5 of us in the room. Now, if you're at the recreational level, they're able to cater to all 10 of us, right? So at that point, they can upscale their grow room. They can maybe experiment a little bit more and make more different effects of marijuana for different people.
Okay, so let me cut you off right
Cut
there
me off.
and kind of give you a con of
Do
this,
it.
right? So we're talking about people who are basically weed chemists,
Yes, they're weed chemists. That's a great way to
marijuana
put it.
chemists, right?
Yeah.
All right. So with that being said, sure, you're probably going to get a more pure substance, but it's probably going to. I'm sure you've seen Breaking Bad.
Oh, absolutely.
So you're going to get a purer substance, but you're also going to get a more potent substance,
You absolutely are.
which means that the stuff that's being grown in attics is mild compared to the stuff that you can purchase from a medical marijuana facility.
Correct.
So if, like, going back to what you said with kids, they want what they can't have, right?
Mhm.
They see the older people doing it. They don't understand, maybe they don't completely understand the risks involved with indulging in such a thing. So it is very possible for them to overdo it even on
Yeah.
their first time because they don't know what to expect,
Correct.
right?
Absolutely.
So like when we were kids, and I'll tell you now, like the product that's out there now, even compared to back then, is
Night and
far
day.
superior.
It's night and day.
Far superior, right? So I can see the concern where people who are opposed to this legalization, where they're worried about kids getting a hold of it And with it being so potent, it could have negative side effects or really, really damage a kid. Like,
Absolutely.
right?
I 100% agree with you, but your counterpoint, the alcohol that our parents consumed, the alcohol that we consumed, right? It was different. And
Not so
now
much so.
not so much. But what I'm getting at
I
is
mean, you had Bacardi 151, which is no longer
no
available,
longer available.
and that shit was potent.
You also have Four Loko, which is no longer available.
Right.
So they saw, that's kind of what I was getting to. They saw what was too potent, what was aimed at certain. It doesn't matter what anyone says. I know that a Four Loko wasn't all the way solely geared towards a 21-year-old. Okay, like the marketing campaign, the design on the can,
It looked like a babe
it did.
can.
It
Or,
did.
yeah.
It wasn't just geared towards that. You know what I mean? It was geared towards a 15-year-old. Like without them saying it. And think about Joe Camel. Remember the Joe Camel
Cool,
guy
yeah.
all right.
Oh,
That
no,
wasn't
yeah, the
just
camel.
for that
Right.
wasn't just for mom and dad. That was also, hey, look at that guy. That guy's cool. Because I remember being 5 years old and in the grocery store with my grandma,
And seeing the camel.
seeing the camel, like, oh, dude, that guy's badass.
And leather jacket,
Yeah.
cigarette in his mouth.
He
Yeah.
just seems like a cool guy,
Okay.
So Joe Camel isn't a prevalent thing on the Camel cigarettes anymore. In fact, I haven't seen Joe Camel in years. Okay.
Right.
Four Loko, the can is completely different, right? 151 is no longer around. So I think with anything, it's a trial and error. And yeah, you're gonna have some kid. I mean, we weren't supposed to get beer when we were 15, but we did.
Right.
And no one knew with Bacardi 151, if you took 4 shots of it the first time you do it, that you're probably gonna black out and you're probably gonna throw up and you're probably gonna go whaling that night too. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it's unfortunate, but it is a trial and error type thing. So when these companies do see, hey, some kids have gotten their hands on it and we might need to adjust our marketing, we might need to adjust how potent this is, we might need to adjust the packaging, we might need to do these things, right? I understand where they'd be coming from. If a kid gets a little too high, what's the worst that's going to happen though? You know what I mean? So think about if a kid gets a little too drunk, he's going to be throwing up and he probably is going to have to go to a hospispittal.
Right, but
He's going to fall asleep if he's too
when
high.
a kid gets too high, I mean, what are the long-term effects of that? Like, are they going to develop mental health issues, schizophrenia, paranoia, things like that?
So with anything, I got a little too drunk a few times in college and high school. So I learned I got to dial that back. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to be throwing up. I don't want to be wailing. I don't want to be doing certain things. So I had to learn, right? And I think any kid is going to be like, well, I got a little too high that time, so I might need to dial it back. I think in my world, that's how I would see that.
So you're saying basically just a tolerance. A tolerance, like, but you have to gauge your own tolerance.
You have to gauge your own tolerance.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely you do.
But how do you do that without some kind of intervention from somebody who knows what they're doing, right? Like right now, as it's recreation or as it's medical, like if you go to a dispensary and you have like
those guys will educate you.
That's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
they're there to educate. But all right, so here's where I guess it gets tricky because when we're talking about kids aren't going to be able to go into a dispensary and get educated and purchase this under the supervision of somebody who knows what they're doing, right? With it being recreational, you're going to have more people in possession with it.
Yeah.
Because, it's going to be open. It's going to be, there's not going to be a criminalization aspect to it. So you're going to have more people with it, which means it's going to be more widely available to kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
Essentially, right?
Yeah.
And without them knowing, having the supervision of, hey, this is your first time. Maybe you don't need this much. Let's dial this back and let's work your way up maybe to this.
Did no one ever do that for you?
No, I mean, no. As a kid, nobody's ever going.
So the first time I tried marijuana, the first time I ever tried it, I was 16, and it was with some of the guys I used to hang out. Well, that I still do hang out with, buddies.
About your age?
Yeah, best man in my wedding.
Okay.
And other guys from Saybrook. That group of guys I would run with.
Okay.
Right. It was on Route 45 across from the corner bar. A buddy of ours, brother, lived in an apartment back there, and he had a bowl, and we were all going to go see Grandma's Boy, that movie, that comedy movie, and everyone was like, "Hey, you want to?" Because they had all smoked before,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, "Hey, you want to smoke?" And I'm like, "I've never done it," and they're like, "All right, so what you're gonna do? You're gonna take it, you're gonna do one puff, and you're gonna hold it in, and you're gonna exhale, and then see how you feel, and then if you want a little bit more, we'll give it to you." That's exactly how my first time went. And,
Interesting. Maybe you're. I mean,
so maybe I'm ignorant, but I
Or
just
maybe
assumed
you're-
that's
maybe-
how everyone's first time went. It's just like, fuck it. It just like when I was in college, the first time I did cocaine. Like my buddy, the other best man in my wedding, was like, "Hey, you're gonna want to right on this nose, do a little bump, and then don't do it at the same nose, do it with the other nose, just a little bump. Wait 20 minutes and see how you feel, because you don't want to overdo that."
yeah. All right. So you're talking about people who are your age who have already had the experience. But what was their experience like their first time? Did they have somebody right there holding their
See,
hand
I
through
didn't
the
even
process?
think of that. And now that you say that, I'm like, wow, I kind of just sounded ignorant.
That's why I asked you.
Yeah.
You're hanging out with people your age.
Yeah.
Who really shouldn't have it in the first place.
Yeah.
Right? So
No,
how
you're right.
responsible are they?
How responsible are
Right.
they?
So
And this was all years ago. So, I
Right.
mean, it's just, times have changed,
I can tell you the first
But-
time I ever smoked and the first time I ever drank, I did not have somebody there holding my hand.
Oh, man.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, man.
Like I'm just like you, I'm around people my age
Yeah.
who are, maybe they've got experience in it, so maybe they've got their tolerance, they know their threshold,
Yeah. Sure.
but they don't know mine
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
And especially whenever whenever you're young, and your peers are a huge influence.
They're
So
the
what if
biggest
somebody
influence on you.
says, "What if you took that first hit, Tom?" And they're like, and you're like, "Whoa, yeah, that's interesting." And they're like, "Come on, Tom, take another hit." They're gonna try to influence you to take another hit.
And they
You
did.
don't take another hit, they're gonna call you, "Oh, Tom, don't be a bitch. Don't be a
pussy.
bitch."
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
just take one more, and you're gonna have peer pressure to take that second hit. Now you're just like in the
God,
clouds,
man. Yeah.
falling asleep, dozing off on the couch or wherever you're at, just at a table somewhere at a restaurant. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't think I can see the concern. I should say I can see the concern
I think
of
the
why.
concerns are valid.
Yeah, no,
concerns are
I
valid.
completely, especially with the potency of marijuana over the years.
Yeah.
Like,
Because it's not the same.
right.
It's
And
not.
I think Joe Rogan made a good point about this. He said, kids all the way up, I think he said to 18, maybe. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he said 18, but he said that he does not agree that kids under 18 should be smoking or doing marijuana, the new stuff, right? He said back in the day you could get away with it.
See, I have an antithesis to that, though. There are children that are prescribed medical marijuana. Now, they're not
They're
smoking it.
prescribed
They're not smoking
by
it.
a medical doctor
Yes, they're
by
prescribed by a medical doctor.
who is going to give them a dosage.
Tinctures,
Right.
that kind of thing. So the combustion aspect is completely different. But I do think it's important to say that even though we're going over these pros and cons and there are concerns in this, don't get it twisted. There are some amazing benefits that will come from this, especially for people with seizures, people who are depressed.
But
PTSD,
let
military
me.
veterans,
All right, so we're talking about a medical use.
medical use.
It's
But not
legal
everyone's
already,
getting.
medical.
Yeah, so what we're doing now is we're getting into a recreational thing.
Right.
But just because we're getting into a recreational thing doesn't mean that someone who maybe doesn't have access or the funds to get a medical marijuana card that needs medical marijuana, because it costs money. It costs a good amount of money. I mean, 150 for your consultation for a 3-minute phone call is $150. That's just to get your fucking card. Then it's $85 to register with the state of Ohio. So right there, you just dropped $235 to even have access to go get marijuana.
Then you got to buy the product.
Then you got to buy the product. So a luster pod, okay, which is it kind of looks like a Juul cigarette,
Like
thing.
a vape?
Like a vape.
Okay.
Right. And a battery is $10. Not bad. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you want the right thing, a real luster pod comprised of live resin or live rosin, which is the byproduct in marijuana that has the THC and the CBD, CBA, CBN, all that give you the health benefits, right? That ranges anywhere from 30 for a low end one to about $65 for the pod. Okay? So you had $75 your first go around. So then think about this. You just spent $135 for the right to get your card. $85 to register in the state of Ohio. So that's $240. $250 with for the battery. $60 if you want a pretty good luster pod. You spent $310 to be able to get medicine at that point. Now, it's not
for
every
even
time.
your first dose.
For your first dose.
Right.
Okay. Think about how many people can't afford that. And now it stands to reason.
No, see, I disagree with you.
There's a lot of people though, man.
I disagree with the notion that it will deter people. The price will deter people because if somebody wants it, they're going to pay for it regardless.
Oh, they will.
Right? Whether it's
will.
black market or if it's legalized at a dispensary, people are going to pay the price.
And I'm glad you said black market because I think the black market is going to thrive with marijuana becoming if marijuana does become legal
Recreationally? Why so?
Because
let me ask you: before you even go on, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's a bad thing.
Okay, go ahead. Explain why.
So I just said that a luster pod, $60, right? For a decent one, for a good one.
Okay.
Okay. Stands to reason it's gonna. So you have big tobacco, you have big alcohol, you have big pharma. It's gonna become big marijuana, right? If it becomes legal. At the state level, if it becomes legal, there will be a big marijuana. There's going to be a state governing body that governs everything about that. Exactly.
Right.
Well, it's going to become more prevalent, right? It's going to have full control over everything if it doesn't already.
Right.
Now, there's going to be additional tax on that. So let's say it's 10%.
Okay.
Right. That's $66 at that point for what was once $60. And I don't care who you are, over time, that adds up.
It does.
That 10% will add up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, I can go get that luster pod for $66 legally when it becomes legal. Sean, let's just give the drug dealer a name. Sean lives in downtown Ashtabula, and you know Sean from high school. Sean used to sell weed. You know what I mean? I wonder. Well, he always had good prices. Let me hit him up. Because I can't afford $60 fucking for a luster pod, right? Oh yeah, bro, I got it. $20. How do you know what's in there? Right? How do you know it's not laced with something?
Okay, so here's where I'm gonna counter that.
If this argument makes sense to you,
I see what you're saying.
Okay.
So basically, it's going to be a knockoff brand.
Yep, and cheaper. Means he's
right?
Gonna come back to you.
Okay, and I think people will be smart enough to realize. Okay, so I think people are smart enough to realize. Okay, so if this is half the price that it is at the dispensary, it's got to be off brand, generic, maybe homegrown, homemade, whatever it is. I think people are going to question that when they see that the price is half, because they know they're probably not getting the same quality given the circumstances. Now, let's say somebody buys. Let's go back to kids, right?
Okay.
If somebody is purchasing a larger amount, right? You're talking black market, purchasing a large amount from the dispensary with the intent to distribute and sell to the general community.
Mm-hmm.
People who maybe don't have, or are not able to have access to it for some reason or another, whether it be age, whether it be some kind of other legal restrictions. If they're selling that product, or allegedly selling that product, to somebody for half the cost, obviously they're not making money. If you're a drug dealer on the black market and you're selling a product for less than you bought it, you're not a very good drug dealer, for one.
You're a
Right?
dog shit drug dealer.
Right? You're not going to make any money, and it's not a charity.
Correct.
So I think people will realize that and second guess maybe what they're actually buying.
Oh, sure. I mean, but also think about, I mean, you have fiends, dude. There are fiends that are drug addicts.
Then to them, it's not going to matter what's in it.
Correct. It's not going to matter. But you're going to have, if someone can make a luster pod, say, and that's that live rosin that I was talking about. So it's like a liquid kind of, it's a concentrate, right? I don't exactly know what's in it from, the medical standpoint, but you trust it enough because it's medical, and a doctor recommended it and everything. But doctors also recommend Vicodin. We all
and how much are those abused?
Exactly.
Or oxys or perks or
exactly. So what I'm saying is this
Ozempic.
Ozempic. Oh my! I need some Ozempic. So who can say what that drug dealer put in there? And hey, it got me really high. It was awesome. And it was half the price. But how do you know what's in that? How do you know there's not some fentanyl?
Okay, so let's go to this, right? So, prescription drugs, pain medications, oxys,
Percocet,
right? So they're not a recreational. A lot of them are opioids and like class whatever drugs, class 1 or whatever they want to call it.
Class A, I think it's
something. I don't know the specifications, but so those are already something that you have to obtain with a prescription.
Correct.
If you do it the right way.
Yes.
So there is a black market already for those drugs.
Mm-hmm.
How is that currently, and how do you think that would relate to the weed situation, the marijuana situation?
As far as
black market, right? So to me, they're analogous with each other.
Okay, I see what you're saying now. So I think if you legalize it at a state level, I don't think it's going to be as of a black market situation as maybe like a Vicodin or a Percocet, that kind of thing. But I do think that there's going to be some dangerous shit out there. There's going to be some dangerous knockoffs. There's going to be some stuff out there, especially that we go back to kids. Hey, it's $66 for that luster pod, and I got an older brother that can go get it for me. I mean, I just got to give him $66, but why pay the 66 when I don't know any better? And this dude down the road has it for 25, and he says it's the same thing. He says it's Gorilla Glue, strain name Gorilla Glue. That's $66 at Italian Herbs, but Sean has it for $25, and it looks the same and it smells the same. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I think that there's a dangerous situation that could arise from that, and I think
that's already a possibility in our current situation with the medical, or even before medical.
Dude, before medical?
I mean, I think regardless, I think the access and the availability to the drugs, it's always been there.
Now,
right?
Do you consider marijuana a drug?
I think that anything that alters, I think anything that you put in your body that is not, how do I want to put it? I think anything you put in your body is a drug. Water is a drug. Food is a drug. Food and Drug Administration, right? You're putting
Yeah,
things into
FDA.
your
Yeah.
body that alter some kind of chemistry or create some kind of reaction in the body.
But a drug's always bad.
Not, I don't think drugs are always bad. I think that's a stigma that drugs are
There's a
bad,
big stigma on drugs.
right? But I don't think drugs are necessarily bad. I just think anything that you put in your body that has some kind of reaction is a drug. So
Now, let me ask
maybe
you.
I could be wrong. I mean, we can look up the definition of a drug, but let's do it.
Let's look up what
Let's
the definition of a drug is.
let's check it out.
I like where this conversation headed.
What is a drug? And nope.
A medicine.
Close. Where am I at here? Here we go. And switch. Transition. All right. So what does it say here? A medicine or other substance which has a physiological effect when ingested or otherwise introduced into the body. So I would say food would fall under. I would say food would fall under that.
Yeah, because I mean, a physiological effect. So your physiology is essentially like your makeup, right?
Right.
So I know I get happy as hell when I eat a piece of pizza because I love pizza. I feel great when I eat pizza, right? My body doesn't look good, but I feel like $1,000,000, you know. But I would say for me, pizza is a drug. You know what I mean? Because I love it. Like I love eating pizza, and I could see how you say food is a drug, right? Because for some people, like people with eating disorders and shit, food literally is a drug. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like overeaters, that kind of thing. I mean, but I think at the same time, what we have to understand is that something's always being promoted with a drug of any kind. So like marijuana, we're promoting this safety, we're promoting this access for everyone, so you don't have to be put into a bad situation. Like weed dealers aren't coke dealers. You know what I mean? Traditionally, you know, I've met some weed dealers. They're nice guys. I know them. It's not that serious. You know what I mean? A coke dealer, not generally a nice guy from the media depictions. Yeah, and that could just be
I
media,
was gonna say
you
I
know,
wouldn't
but
base that off of media.
or like a heroin dealer. Never done heroin a day in my life. Don't ever plan on doing it. Stay away from it. But I can imagine that a heroin dealer probably isn't the best guy, right?
Uh,
Probably doesn't have your best interest at heart.
yeah. I mean, I guess especially if they're aware. I would say the ones who,
Have fentanyl in it.
yeah, the ones who claim that it's maybe strictly one drug and, but are aware that it has fentanyl
Yeah.
or some other substance and still sell it as, uh, just under the guise of something else. I don't. I think that's a pretty shitty. I think it takes a pretty shitty human
Pretty shitty human being
to do that. Yeah, I agree.
Now, where I'm going with that is that, you know, weed dealer isn't generally an awful guy, but we're also promoting at that point, you know, safety in being able to procure the substance, right? So what does that do? That safety in being able to procure the substance also takes a burden off of law enforcement. Okay. So,
It does.
but there's also other burdens that are taken off of law enforcement too, when if marijuana becomes legal at the state level. So, these guys now aren't searching for petty marijuana crimes. You know what I mean? People aren't going to be locked up, you know, for marijuana.
I know a guy actually. He just got out of jail. He did about a year for a marijuana offense.
Now, here's my question with that. So, you sell marijuana to someone.
Mhm.
You know, I bought marijuana when I was 16. You know, I knew the guy. You know, I never thought he was a bad person. I was comfortable around him. You know, he never pressured me. I never got threatened. You know, if I owed him $10, he was just like, "Yo, man, like, can you roll through with that?" You know, um, but I never saw them as doing anything bad. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, weed was illegal, it still is, but I never saw it as like bad. But I saw heroin dealers as bad people, coke dealers as
Is
bad
that a
people.
stigma that you were kind of programmed to believe, though?
It definitely was a stigma, but I
Because I
think the
know people,
difference is
I know people who have sold both,
sure.
and I would consider both people. Let's say if I take two people that I know who did both, I
Mhm.
would consider both of them good people.
Sure. And I know a guy or two that has sold the white powder. You know, he's not a bad guy. You know, I quite like him. But I think the thing is they're selling a substance that they know could potentially kill you. Marijuana is not going to kill you.
Right. That's why I say if they're
So why are
knowingly
they going to jail for something that's just going to make the guy hungry, laugh a bit, probably watch a movie, and then pass out? You know, like
Yeah, no, I agree that
I never understood that.
I will right now agree that marijuana use is something that should have been legal a long time
It
ago.
should have been. I mean, I don't understand why it wasn't, but I do understand why it wasn't, though, because there was money in
It had to do
locking
with
these
money.
people up. There was money in finding these drug dealers. There was money in busting them. There was money in getting that product and then bringing it somewhere else. It's
Right.
just like
But
Contra in the 80s. When they would bring cocaine in,
mhm.
they would sell it on the streets of Los Angeles to fund the war in Nicaragua. That's what was happening.
Yeah, the government would do
The
that.
government did that.
Yeah.
There's a show about that called Snowfall,
Yeah, there's snowfall.
which is a great show, and it really depicted that well.
I watched the show the other day. It was called All American Made. Tom Cruise.
Yeah, with Tommy
Yeah.
C, baby.
Yeah.
That's Scientology.
But yeah, and the government was behind a lot of that, and they were
Yeah.
aware of it, and they let it go on.
And it's just crazy to me that the
And that was based on a
government,
true story.
it absolutely was.
Yeah.
The government hides behind this altruistic like portrayal of themselves that, oh, well, we're here to capture the bad guys and we're going to make our streets
And we're going
safe.
to protect
We're
the
gonna
people of the
protect the
United States.
people.
Right.
But bro, like you're locking up guys that are selling weed that's not doing anything bad to anyone. But you're literally bringing cocaine in and starting the crack epidemic in Los Angeles, killing tens of thousands of low income, underprivileged minorities, because that's mainly who was doing it,
Right.
right? Like let's not pull
If we're talking
strings.
crack,
If we're
but if we're
talking
talking
crack,
coke, we're
it was white
talking
people.
it's the higher end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're literally doing this and you're fine with that, but you're saying like, "Oh, well we're here to catch the bad guys." But the bad guys aren't the guys you were locking up. You're the bad guys.
I was gonna say, are you saying they are the bad guys?
They're the bad guys
Right.
they brought in the hard drugs, bro.
Right.
And I think that the burden on law enforcement for so long, I don't think a lot of these police officers really believed in what they were doing.
I think they did. And I think it was because they were programmed to believe that.
Oh,
and
I can see that.
And I think like we talked about the stigmas changing. I think there are a lot of police officers and law enforcement now who couldn't care less about a petty marijuana offense.
Oh,
And then maybe they'll
absolutely.
confiscate the marijuana and send them on their way, maybe destroy it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, I can agree. I think the stigma is changing. I think law enforcement is kind of over this. So I think law enforcement would have an easier job and probably be safer out there because they don't have to worry about somebody who's maybe has some marijuana for, personal use,
Mhm.
but on the side, maybe they're slinging some white, maybe some heroin, whatever. Maybe I'm ruining my own point here, but
I don't think you are. I think you're making a very cognizant point.
but I think it'll kind of if somebody's rolling down the street and in their car and
Smoking Indo,
smoking, yeah,
sipping on gin and
sipping
juice.
it. And an officer happens to get a whiff, pulls him over. Now, but this guy is also, like I said, slinging some coke or some heroin, and has some on him, but he doesn't want to go to jail. But because that blunt that he was smoking, now that officer's put in a situation where his life could be at risk because this guy doesn't want to go to jail. Maybe he's just got out of jail from doing 10 years and he's like, I'm not going back. So now he's either fleeing, fighting, whatever the case is. So I think decriminalizing the marijuana will put law enforcement kind of in a better position to be in a safe spot.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be in a much safer spot, but don't get it twisted. If you get pulled over and you're high and you're smoking a blunt in your car, that's an OVI. That's operating.
Okay, yeah, you got a
that's
point
a
there.
DUI, dude.
You got a point.
Like, so I mean, there's still. I mean, it's not going to be the wild fucking west when marijuana gets legal. I say when because it's going to happen.
It'll happen.
Maybe
yeah.
not this year. Maybe next year. Maybe the year after. But the thing is there's still going to be rules, and I think people are ignorant to the fact that just because something becomes legal doesn't mean that you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Free willy nilly.
Like that's not what it means.
Right. But I guess to kind of continue on, I think it should be. I think it should be legal. And for what we talked about so far, so the points that I made as far as the police officers, but what I really want to talk about is, and I've already mentioned this too, is it's already available, whether it's recreational or black market.
Mm-hmm.
You can get it regardless, right? Not only that, we have bordering states who have legalized recreational use.
Michigan and then New York.
New York, right.
Yeah.
So you already have people making trips to these states and getting them in an abundance and then coming back and selling it, right? So it's already accessible.
Yes.
And that money that they're spending in those other states could be spent in Ohio.
And the money in Ohio.
Keep the money in Ohio, right? With this proposal, there's an additional 10% tax.
Yes.
On the purchase of marijuana.
Yes.
Hey, don't get caught up there, brother.
My bad.
But no, I just was saying your cord.
Yeah.
Shit. I don't want you to rip your headphones off. But yeah, so with the additional 10% tax, that's a ton of revenue.
It is.
That could stay in the state. What are they talking? I think I looked. It was 200. They estimate tax revenue collected $276 to $403 million in tax revenue. Yeah, that's fucking substantial, bro.
That's very substantial. And think about all the applications that could have in the state.
Yeah, I mean, it could go to. I'm pretty sure. I would have to look deeper into it, but I'm pretty sure a significant portion of that tax revenue has to go to drug education for students.
Yes, a good amount of that. But I also think education in general. I think it goes to like schools. So think about Edgewood Schools is asking for a brand new school.
New building, right?
So if it works out that way, think about a school that needs a new building. Marijuana could pay for some of that, right? And doesn't that go against everything that DARE taught us? Say no to drugs, right?
Yeah.
And now drugs are funding schools.
Funding the schools.
So who's the asshole here? Who's the asshole?
Comes full fucking circle.
Yeah, it came full fucking circle,
yeah.
dude. I let that lion down, bro. That DARE lion, I let him down. And I feel bad. But now he looks like the idiot, not me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But anyway, I digress. But the taxes alone are going to have implications on not just the education system by allowing drug education, maybe if true, like better schools, but also think about so we live in Ashtabula County. Our roadways are dog shit. Think about they could pave roads. It could go towards the preservation of historical landmarks, historical buildings. We have Main
it
Avenue,
could go to addiction intervention.
addiction intervention, which is a severely underfunded and under-resourced thing in our state.
Right.
Right, not thing, but program in our state. It could go towards that. It could help revitalize Main Avenue, which they've been talking about for years. And what do they have on Main Avenue? They have an alcohol rehabilitation center, that Club Agape.
Oh yeah,
And
they
then
have
that old hotel is for addicts.
right. They have a lot of addiction and homelessness resources on that side of town.
And it'd be beautiful for something like marijuana to go in there and help.
I agree. I think this is for a different topic, maybe for a different day, but I think there is a lack of willingness for some of these people to actually get clean.
Absolutely.
But
that's
that is
neither here nor there today.
Yeah, that's a completely different topic, and I think there would be some good counterpoints to what you just said to that in that topic. But like I said, we'll save that for another day.
That for a different day.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I'm really intrigued by where it's gonna go, because even if it gets declined, that doesn't mean it's dead.
Right. No, I don't think it, like we talked about earlier. I don't think it'll ever die. I think it'll keep being put on the ballot until enough people agree to pass it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the last point I want to make and pose a question to you on is, we hear all the benefits. We hear all the things that it's going to help with, right? People with anxiety, glaucoma, eating disorders, people with cancer, Parkinson's disease, and that's a minute sample of a much larger petri dish of what will be affected.
Right.
But what about the other effects? Schizophrenia, memory loss. There was actually a video that I watched on YouTube last night, and it was a doctor. I wish I could fucking find it, but it was this doctor, and he said, "What's worse for you, alcohol or marijuana?" And it was one of the YouTube shorts. It was like 30 seconds long. And he says, alcohol ages your body faster. Okay, there was a study of 10,624, I believe, people, he said. Alcohol aged their body faster. Okay? Marijuana aged their mind faster, and not in a good way. These proteins and stuff like that contribute to schizophrenia, that contribute to Parkinson's disease, that contribute to memory loss. All these things were much more prevalent in marijuana users than people that indulged in alcohol more than 3-4 drinks a week.
It's interesting.
It's very interesting.
I would like to see that study.
I'm gonna find that video and send it to you tonight.
Cool.
And maybe we can post the link in the description
if we find that. Yeah,
we'll find that.
We'll do that.
You can educate yourselves on that as well. So what do you think about that?
Moderation,
just like anything.
Yeah,
I agree implicitly.
Like you said, you eat too much pizza, it's gonna
look like this.
Yeah, it's gonna age something.
It's gonna age this
gut. Yeah. But yeah, so we'll go ahead and do that. We'll end that topic there. And if you are still watching, thank you so much for watching. If you got value out of this or learned something about this, give us a like, subscribe to the channel. We'd appreciate it. Absolutely. But we are going to go ahead and move on. One more thing we want to talk about. What side of the conflict do you stand on when it comes to Israel and Palestine or Hamas, right? So correct. Are you pro-Israel? Are you pro-Palestine? Or are you pro-Hamas? And I think there's a big difference between being pro-Palestine and being pro-Hamas.
Oh, absolutely. It's just like saying, are you pro-Afghanistan or are you pro-Taliban?
Al-Qaeda. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there is a distinct difference. And the big thing, too, is a lot of people think that if you're an Israeli or you're a Palestinian, you automatically hate the other one. Automatically.
Right.
But, bro, there were, in one section of Israel, there were over 121,000 Palestinians living in peace that were ingrained in the culture, that were friends with Israelis. Like, this isn't, I don't think this is as much of a current Israel and Palestine conflict as much as it is a traditional Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And what I mean by that is traditionally going back even before 2001 when the very large escalation happened, these guys hated each other. They hated each other for years and years and years. Right?
I think there are groups and factions that hate each other.
Yes. Like there are groups, in fact, but just because you're an Israeli
Like
doesn't mean you hate
Hamas.
Hamas.
Hamas makes it known that they want all Jews dead.
Yes. And it's a disgusting thing.
It is a disgusting
It's a disgusting thing. Just because of a religion, a skin color, a sports team doesn't mean you should die because of that.
Right.
I fucking hate the Steelers, but I don't want them to die.
But I want to make a point that that Hamas and the Israel conflict is not over religion.
No, it's not. It's over land, isn't it?
It's over land.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, just as, and I'm probably not going to articulate this very well, but 1947, 1948,
okay,
the British basically gave that region to.
Was it Gaza?
It was. No, not just Gaza, but the whole area of Israel and Palestine. The British gave that area to fleeing Jews because they had just.
Right?
What's that?
Because of the Holocaust?
Holocaust, Zionism, right? So, there were apparently a lot of Jews who were already migrating to that area. But then but it wasn't like a national movement. It was, just little colonies here and there that were fleeing, right? Like families. But then the British gave it to the Jews, as after they had taken it from the Ottoman Empire after World War One, Two, after World War
II.
Yeah. So, and there was basically an agreement that was proposed or possibly made for there to be two-state. It was what they would consider a two-state solution. You would have an area that was for Israel, designated Israel for the Jews, and then you would have Gaza and what's called now the West Bank for Palestinians.
Okay.
Right, but they didn't recognize Palestine as a state. It wasn't a statehood.
Okay.
Right. But I think the conflict comes in when you have Israeli colonies, Jewish colonies that would migrate into these areas that were designated for Palestine, and you would have people Jews settling in those areas, and the Palestinians weren't too fond of that. They felt like they were their territory, their area was being encroached on.
Okay.
By the Jews. So that's. I mean, it goes way back further than that, but I would say the most recent conflicts kind of originate from there. But so I can understand from the Palestinian standpoint, not Hamas, from the Palestinian standpoint of why they would be frustrated.
Sure.
That the Jewish are kind of colonizing, settling in occupying these areas. Also, you have Gaza, who is basically landlocked in one area, and all their supplies, their food, their water, electricity, all that's controlled by Israel. Okay. So what they call it, or what's been going around the interwebs, is basically an open air prison.
Okay.
Right.
So elaborate on that.
So the open air prison, they see it as, because the Gaza Strip, Gaza butts right up against the Mediterranean Sea, and you have Egypt on one side, Egypt to the west, and then you have Israel basically from the south all the way up to the northeast.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So they are this one small strip of land, and Israel basically controls everything that comes in there, goes in or goes out.
Okay.
They control their water, they control their electricity, they control their food resources. So whenever Israel wants, they can just like on October 7th, whenever Hamas bombed Israel and stormed Israel, Israel shut off all their resources. Nothing's going in, nothing's coming out. They shut off their water, their electricity. They have nothing. They have no resources, and Israel controls all that. So if you think about it, in a prison, who controls that? The state, the government.
Yes.
They control all the resources that go in and out. They control electricity, all of it. So I can see the correlation between, prison and what's going on in Gaza. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay,
I see what you're saying.
so basically, Israel is the warden of Gaza, right? So
Okay.
so I can understand why they would be upset, but I don't think that gives Hamas the right to want to kill all the Jews. I don't think that's justifiable.
It's not justifiable.
Right.
It's sad. And anytime you have a terrorist group, what do all terrorist group besides killing have in common? They all have the radical leaders. They all have the sensationalized videos. They all have fear tactics, scare tactics. They act boldly, right? But what happens when the head is knocked off, like the lead, right? They crumble real quick, but then another person comes in. But it's because these guys feel so strongly about what they're doing that they bring people in, and it just keeps sensationalizing, growing bigger and bigger and bigger until they don't even remember what the initial goal was, because it morphs so much, right? They're very organized. I feel these terrorist groups, not just Hamas, but like Al Qaeda, the Taliban, the Nazi Party, Mussolini's group. I forget their name when he was in charge of Italy. They all, one, something dies, but another person picks it back up, right? But the mission warps in a way too. So while they put on this air of they know what they're doing, they're to be feared and everything like that, at the end of the day, what really are they? They're just men that talk loud, and they think that they can win an argument by yelling the loudest and having the biggest guns and the biggest armaments and such. And generally, that is how you win a war. If you have the best of something, you're going to win. But if you don't have the support of everyone behind you, you're never going to win. And that was proven with the Nazi Party, right? When the Nazis had great stuff. I mean, look at history. The Nazis, by all accounts, should have won, right? Like, from what I've read, the Nazis had a great fleet. They had
great
weapons.
I mean, they had a lot of soldiers.
They were delving into mysticism. They were like the occult and stuff too.
I think what screwed them is there was a lot of allegiances
outside,
right?
And that was their undoing. But from a pure tech standpoint, they probably should have won. And I don't say that lightly or with like any joviality to that. It's just the facts. But what was their undoing is their guy who liked to yell and talk loud ultimately ended up losing his shit, and from there it crumbled, right? So I think someone like a group like Hamas, what I'm getting at is they have all those things. They have tech, they have a leader who's pretty boisterous, and I don't think that melds well for something, because Israel's not in NATO, right? They're an adjacent party. They're like an ally of NATO, right? So if we go in there and we help, well, they're going to get knocked off pretty quick, because we have the best fucking military in the nation, or in the world. You know what I mean? So I think everyone's very hung up right now on what's going on, but they don't see the end game.
I don't think there is an end game. All right, so let
You don't
me
think there is?
for who? Hamas or Israel?
I don't think that there is an end game for Hamas because it's just going to end.
I think there's an end game for Hamas. Hamas's end game is to kill the Jews. I mean, they've
But it's
made
never
their.
going to succeed. The Nazis tried to kill the Jews too. It didn't work.
I agree. I don't think it's not going to work. I mean, there are too many other
And where does it
outside.
stop? Where does it stop? They want the Jews dead.
They want the Jews dead,
But there's Jews in America.
right?
Are they going to come over here?
Well, that's a great question, and I think we should secure our borders for that simple fact. But so let's ask this question: what is the end game for Israel?
The end game for Israel is protecting themselves.
You think?
Bro, so many babies and kids and people have died needlessly just because of their religion. I think the end game for them is just living without religious persecution. Because I know what you said. I understand that what Israel did wasn't great. Shutting off the electricity, shutting off the water, doing these things. Those are deplorable things, right? But at the end of the day, Israel's our ally, and I have to stand with my ally. You know what I mean?
Not when your ally does fucked up shit. If you did some fucked up if I saw you just like walk up to somebody and punch them in the face, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, Tom, that's fucked up, bro. I'd check you on it. I would
check me
definitely.
on it.
I
I
would
know you
check.
check
I
me
would
on
check
it.
you on it.
I
But
mean,
all right. So here's my thing. So here's what I'm concerned about, and
tell me, baby.
and with the whole, I think there's a lot of blind allegiance to Israel.
There is.
I think there are a lot of people who are just pro-Israel because maybe they heard Biden say it or something along those lines. But I try to look at both sides, and what bothers me about what Israel's doing is, for one, they cut off all the resources to the citizens in Gaza. Now, granted, Hamas does some pretty wild things to basically put civilians in harm's way. But you have Israel cutting off all the resources to Gaza. You have Israel telling Gazan citizens to evacuate to the south, yet they drop bombs on South Gaza. They're telling the citizens to evacuate to South Gaza, and then they go ahead and drop. They're bombing South Gaza. Yeah.
I did not know.
So
that.
here's my
That
question.
is fucked up.
So I want to say Prime Minister of Israel Benjamin Netanyahu. It may have been him. It may not have been him. It may have been somebody else. But somebody had definitely said that they're going to basically eliminate Hamas so it can't happen again. Right? So, but my question is, where does the line drawn? Because this conflict, as we talked about, has been going on for a long time. And if you look at the proportionality between the amount of Palestinians that have died compared to the amount of Israelis who have died, it's probably like a 3-1. Like, Palestinians have died compared to Israel's. So, and there's a term that's been thrown around that made me kind of really think, is Israel, and let me tell you why I think this, before October 7th, before Hamas went into Israel, Egypt allegedly had warned Israel that something big was about to happen. And Israel has probably the best intelligence agency in the world.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So they should have known. Did they know? Who knows, right? They allegedly had word from Egypt. So if they had known, why didn't they stop it? Maybe they wanted a reason to go into Gaza, right?
Sure.
And there's a term being thrown around called mowing the grass. You see these conflicts rise up every couple years, where Hamas will provoke Israel into defending themselves.
2011 was the last one.
No, it wasn't. No. These happen all the time.
Not 2021, excuse me. 2021 was the last one, wasn't it?
Maybe where it was like a large amount of casualties, but I mean,
that's the last time I heard. 2021, I remember the year I got married was
right, but they're always fighting. So is Israel's end game to eliminate the Palestinians? They keep encroaching on their land. Every so often, you'll have these conflicts rise up where it's like a 3-to-1 ratio where Palestinians are being killed compared to Israelis. Mm-hmm. So they're telling the God, allegedly they had word that something big was happening, but yet they didn't do anything. Now they're telling Palestinians to evacuate to South Gaza, and then they're bombing South Gaza. So are they mowing? Is Israel's end game to eliminate the Palestinians?
It's a fantastic question. That's something I hadn't even considered.
That's something that concerns me, and that's why it aggravates me when people throw blind trust into Israel and blind support into Israel. Did you hear about the hospital?
I saw you and Fidel were talking about it on your Facebook page,
right? Yeah,
a day or so ago. But I wanted to educate myself a little bit more on that. But I'm going to be honest with you, it was an out of sight, out of mind type thing. I was like, oh shit, I need to look that up. And then I had like a guy come in to buy a car, so I was like, oh, I'll look it up later. And then
right. So there was a hospital that Israel had called. Again, this is all alleged. Obviously, I'm not there. I don't have primary sources for this stuff, but allegedly Israel had called that hospital and told them to evacuate. And I've gotten word that they had already bombed this hospital once, but apparently a couple nights ago, the hospital was bombed again, and 500 people allegedly died.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yes.
This is going to sound very ignorant, and I apologize in advance. I wasn't in the military, wasn't brave enough. I don't know this. Are there certain rules to war?
Absolutely.
So,
Geneva Convention.
Okay. So, that being said, I understand the end game of a war is to win, right? And how can you really win? But that's the end game to a war, to become the victor, right? But is there ever a thing where it's like, hey, we have to retake this territory, we have to defeat this enemy, we have to do these things, but don't bomb a hospital, don't bomb schools.
You know what else is a war crime?
What's a war crime?
Cutting off resources to the population.
That's a war crime. Okay, so what I was asking, my thing is, in a rules to war, are you allowed to bomb hospitals? Like, what kind of fucked up asshole would bomb a hospital?
Right,
where someone might be giving birth, where someone might be recovering
where a
from a heart
civilian
attack.
may be receiving treatment from a wound, a war wound, right?
Yeah.
Some
like,
innocent
the
bystander
has nothing to
right.
do with what's going on, man. Like, and I know that might sound ignorant, but like, if, let's just say 5 years from now, China invades America, I have nothing to do with what happened between us and China, okay? And I'm in a hospital getting treatment, and I get bombed. I'm probably going to be pretty fucking pissed because, like, bro, I didn't even ask for this war. I quite like China because they give me great fucking golf clubs, okay? And I like America because I like being free. I'm cool with both of you. Like, why are you doing this to me?
So let's take a look at this real quick.
But am I making sense with what I said right there?
You are.
Okay.
All right. So just to finish my 1 point.
That's such a fucking sad picture, dude.
We'll get there in a second. But so allegedly, this hospital was bombed, and 500 people died, and both Hamas and Israel are both pointing fingers at each other. You did it, right? So I think it's very important to not jump to any conclusions because Israel's saying, Hamas is saying that Israel's targeting civilians, they're targeting hospitals, and Israel is saying that Hamas is the one who bombed the hospital, but they say it was a misfired rocket, and that's how it blew up. But going back to war crimes, so this picture here,
It's fucking heart wrenching.
this article here, overwhelmed doctors treated Gaza hospital blast victims by performing surgeries on floors and hallways and mostly without anesthesia. So their resources are down to nothing.
Yeah,
so they're performing surgeries on people with no anesthesia. No anesthesia. They're running out of medicine. They're running out of water. They're running out of food. They're running out of all kind of resources. Victims of the explosion at the Al Ali Hospital in Gaza resorted to performing surgeries in the hospital without anesthesia. The blast occurred on Tuesday night, leaving a harrowing scene at the hospital where hundreds of Palestinians had been taken refuge from Israeli bombardment. After the explosion, about 350 wounded people were rushed to Al Shifa, the main hospital in Gaza, and ambulances provided vehicles, according to the AP. The spokesperson told AP that some hospitals suffered severe injuries without missing limbs. Missing limbs. Wow. Shortage of medical supplies and available space. Doctors had no option but to perform surgeries on hospital floors in the hallways. Could you imagine that, bro?
No, I can't. That's so sad, dude. Like, it's fucked up. Like, I understand
It's war.
that it's war, and I understand that you might not like this guy, you might not like this religion, you might not like what they did to you, you might not like what they're doing to you or they've done to you or they will do to you, but like, dude, like, a 6-year-old kid has nothing to do with that, man. He or she has nothing to do with that. Like, they're just living their life, man. Like, and these people, like, war's such a sad thing, but it's such a necessary thing. You know what I mean? Like, no matter what, like, you're taking lives, and I don't know, man. Maybe I'm not making sense here, but like, I understand why war is necessary, but at what cost, man? Like, what do you really win? Like, what do you really win?
That's why I'm asking. What is the end game?
There is no end game because it's never gonna stop. It's never gonna stop. You know, like, we thought that Nazism was dead, right? Like, we thought that Adolf Hitler's vision was done when he died, right? Well, look what's popping up now. More anti-Semitic stuff than ever that I can remember. And I'm not saying that it's Adolf Hitler, it's the Third Reich or whatever, but what I'm saying is just because he died, his idea didn't. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and obviously there's a mass Judaic implication with the Palestinian, Gazan, Israeli conflict right now, but I'm talking just like Jews that were in Europe. A lot of Jews in Europe migrated to America, you know, and in America there's a lot of anti-Semitic behavior going on right now. So Hitler's vision didn't die with him.
See, I think we got to be careful about some of the things that we say, though, because I think going back to being programmed to think certain things, I try not to rush to judgment.
Oh, sure.
I try not to rush to judgment, and I try not to take the first source that's given to me. So, prime example is, so like I said, with the hospital, both sides are pointing fingers at each other.
They are, yeah.
Right. So here, let me just show you this. So Israeli strikes. So this is the New York Times reporting on the hospital bombing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So their first article, Israeli strike. So they're already blaming the Israelis for this. Strikes hospital, kills hundreds, right? And then in real time, they're changing their article headlines. At least 500 dead in strike on Gaza hospital, Palestinians say. So they went from blaming Israel to not even mentioning Israel. They're just mentioning the strike, right? And then they change it from a strike to a blast.
So the differentiation is initially they were blaming Israel, then they blamed it on like an airstrike.
They blamed it
And
on an
then-
intentional
airstrike, and
Right.
then in the third revision, it's just like, oh, it's a blast. It
It's
could have came from. It could have been residual. It could have been,
right.
it could have been one of us,
Right.
even maybe.
So even
so
the
they made
New
it
York
ambiguous.
right. So
Okay.
even the New York Times is not reporting on this accurately. Like they're so quick to jump and post an article, the news, just get it out there that they're not even getting it right.
No, they're not.
Right. So that's why I'm very, very, very careful to trust anything that comes out of the media, especially when you have known biases within each media organization.
Oh, absolutely, you do.
So, yeah. So I guess the majority consensus as far as the Americans go in this strike is that it was a misfired rocket from Hamas. Where do you think that source came from? You think that's from Hamas saying that, or you think that's Israel saying that?
That's Israel saying that.
Right. So
Yeah.
so that's like when there's an internal investigation in the police departments, right? The police are investigating themselves.
Mhm.
How often do they find that they did wrongdoing? Hardly ever,
They
right?
never do.
That's like if I steal something and I'm like, or if I'm alleged to have stolen something, and then I'm like, you know what? Let me check. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. 5 minutes later, I come back. Yeah, I checked. I didn't steal anything. Are you gonna believe me?
Fuck no.
Fuck no, you're not gonna believe me.
Well, I believe you, but maybe someone else wouldn't.
Right. And I think that's even a problem that you would believe me off rip. You know what I'm saying? Like
I trust
I
you
wouldn't lie to
implicitly.
I wouldn't lie to you, Tom.
No,
But
you wouldn't.
but the fact is, like, I don't know. I think there just needs to be third party, unbiased, but I think it's really kind of hard, especially when there's a lot of money and a lot of influence.
You know what's really sad? So there was a movie Stanley Kubrick directed called Full Metal Jacket.
Oh
Ever
yeah,
seen it?
yeah.
You
Full
privy?
Metal Jacket, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So the very beginning of that movie, everyone thinks it's about the most famous part of that movie is the beginning with Gomer Pyle, and I didn't know they stacked shit that high.
You know that's Marine. Like if you're a Marine and you haven't seen Full Metal Jacket, you're not a Marine.
Oh, I would imagine, but that's not what the movie's about. The movie is about the guy at the beginning being a reporter and reporting ethically and doing the right thing,
Mhm.
right? And one of the chief complaints that he had when he was the character had in the movie was that he can't get the information out fast enough. So initially the issue is that we couldn't get the information out fast enough to report on a war, right?
Right.
Now the issue is we can get the information out so fast that
Instantaneously.
we can misrepresent it however we want.
Right.
So the big problem is I almost think that the internet, for all that it is, for how wonderful it is, the internet is responsible for so many advancements and so many great things in our world, but it's also the cause of so many awful things. And misinformation is the chief thing that the internet is responsible for. The internet gives misinformation, right? People can publish anything that they want,
Right.
but algorithms are what push things to the front.
Well,
Okay.
algorithms are just what people
live
gravitate to, right?
Correct.
People dictate the algorithm.
People dictate that algorithm. Correct. And what I'm getting at is that people want to know what serves them, right?
That's a good point.
Someone who's anti-Israeli is more than likely going to find the headline of that, right? But
Right.
someone who's anti-Palestinian, that's probably not going to come up. A different thing is going to come up, right? So based on their algorithm, like my Facebook algorithm, I don't do anything crazy on the internet anymore. I'm not 25, but like
Hmm.
my Facebook algorithm is sports. My video feed, my groups, they're all sports, right? But I get that information, right? But Megan's, because she does her cakes and stuff now, is more baking. So she
Right.
gets that information. She
Oh
won't
yeah,
get that.
happens so quick. I mean, I
She
just
won't
looked
get
up,
that access.
like, I coach basketball.
Yeah.
I looked up maybe 3 videos on YouTube of some basketball drills,
Yeah.
and now my feed is full of basketball.
That's all it is,
Right.
right?
So yeah, I mean, people. Yeah. No, I 100%.
I went down the golf rabbit hole on YouTube, and now literally I have nothing but golf.
Yeah.
Hasn't helped my game a goddamn bit, but it's there. But I think it's very interesting that we went from wanting to report so quickly and wanting to be able to get that information out as most recently as the Vietnam War, which wasn't that long ago if you think about it. In the grand spectrum of the chapters of humanity,
Hmm.
we're on the next page. You know what I mean? Like the Vietnam War was on page 15. We're on page 16 now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and the issue is that now we are so able to get anything out that anyone can edit. Pure editing has become such a thing
Hmm.
that I guarantee in the 60s when they wanted to get this information out, pure editing wasn't even fucking thought of. You know what I mean? But now if your website can't be pure edited, you aren't worth your salt. You know what I mean? Because you're suppressing voices at that point if you can't peer edit, right?
Right.
So you can do and you can say whatever you want now, and the media can shape our view of this war however they see fit. But the onus is on people to go out there and get the facts, right? So like I wasn't as well versed, and you've taught me quite a bit tonight about this conflict, right? And I was so pro Israel because I mean, as a Catholic and a follower of Jesus, like I immediately, because Jerusalem, everything's in Israel, right?
Right.
So
There are actually three religions with a holy site in Jerusalem. Yeah.
the yeah,
Christians,
Christians,
Jewish,
Jewish, and
and
isn't it
Muslims.
Muslims? Yeah. So for me, like as a believer in Jesus and someone who's deeply vested in that religion, like immediately I wanted to side with Israel because it's like, hey, that's the birthplace of my Lord and Savior. But now, in my mind, they could do no wrong. You know what I mean? Because that's where my religion was born.
We're all
But
people.
now seeing it, like, hey, they might not be those people anymore, man.
And I'm not saying to be
And I know you're
pro.
not. I
Yeah,
know
I
you're
just
not.
my point is
You
like,
approached it with a very objective, in my opinion.
yeah, I like I don't want any of it to happen, right?
No, it's
But
sad.
I think we have to look at the facts and kind of look at it in a big picture. What is actually happening?
What's actually happening? And I think people get scared.
You know, somebody made this analogy on a video I watched, and I thought it was a pretty good analogy, and it kind of really made me think. All right, so here we are, the year 2023, right? We gained our independence 1776. Prior to that, we had, it was weird, 1492.
Columbus sailed the ocean blue.
We landed on Plymouth Rock, and we had all these battles with the Native Americans.
Introduced smallpox, wiped them
We
out.
we took over this land.
We did by force.
Now, what if, but there's a big argument here, and this is where it kind of gets convoluted and the analogy kind of starts to break down. But you have the people of the region, the Palestinians claim that it's their land, right? They were there first. What I'm curious to know how people would react if, let's say, the Native Americans said, "Fuck this, we're taking our shit back."
I've never thought of that. That'd be fucking scary. Because they have every right.
Or so you would think, right? But I mean, it's been how many years? It's been how long?
It's been 500
So,
years.
so do we? I mean, do we like? I don't know. Do we say no, no, no? Like it's already been too long. We've been established here. Like this is our place now. Like to live, to live in peace together. But they're like, nah, no, no, no. We're not living in peace together. This is our land. You took it from us. We're taking it back.
This might sound very ignorant, but we've initially, when we did those heinous things to Native Americans, they were awful. They were bad things. But as time went on, Native Americans became such an ingrained part of our culture. I mean, yeah, they have reservations. They make fuck tons of money on gambling, and I mean they run casinos.
Right. Oh
And,
yeah,
and
no,
we
no, no,
don't
for sure.
segregate them. You know what I mean? Like we're not going and turning off water. I mean, there's a great movie about that coming out with Leonardo DiCaprio tomorrow. The Flowers of the Osage Moon or something like that.
Hmm.
It's a Scorsese film, which kind of documents the injustices that the white man put upon the Native American as recently as the mid 1900s.
Right.
But I mean, I think it's slightly different because we're not actively, there's no hate that I know of towards Native American people.
Right. And over, yeah. I mean, overall, as a population of United States, I would say that's accurate.
Yeah,
I mean, there may be some people who are like, nah, fuck them, and Native Americans,
I mean,
them
old
Indians.
ass racist white men, yeah, but they're just ignorant as fuck anyway.
But what if the Native Americans felt that way against Americans, United States?
I mean, I truly think that that's a great what if, because the Native Americans they're a strong people, they're a united people, they're very
Cultured,
cultured.
traditional,
Yes,
yeah.
guerrilla warfare, bro. I mean, say what you will, but this might sound stupid as fuck of me, but like, you ever seen Rambo?
Mhm.
That genre, I know it's a movie, I know it's sensationalized, but that shows what guerrilla warfare can do, even against the strongest of military forces. He literally took out a small
Well, that's
army,
why it was so.
and those guys fucking live it. You know, the Native Americans,
Yeah, I
they
mean,
don't play.
if you think about it, like when we were in Iraq and Afghanistan, I mean, we could have easily wiped them out, right?
Yeah, for
But it
sure.
was guerrilla warfare because we were in the cities, clearing houses, things
Mhm.
like that. So that's why so many people died. It was horrendous, but yeah, I mean, going back to the Indians, like I'm really curious how the United States, the people, the citizens of the United States would respond. What side would they pick if there was an uprising of Native Americans to take back the land? Which is, like I said, the analogy, imagine the reservations in the United States for the Native Americans, compare that to, let's say, Gaza or the West Bank. I mean, there's a pretty strong analogy there,
There's a
in my
great
opinion.
analogy there. Then that's a great question to pose. And I mean, I don't think it would ever get to that point. I mean, think about how
I, I
how
don't.
cognizant Americans are of the feelings of Native Americans. I mean, they literally, there are sports teams.
I'm not saying, but forget how we as the United States feel about Native Americans, right?
Okay.
We
Okay.
could be sympathetic, empathetic.
Mhm.
We could, understand. But what if the Native Americans decided
It's not good enough. Fuck that.
and we're taking it back? Like, how would our sympathy and our empathy change?
It would definitely change
And would
because
it be favorable to the United States or be favorable to the Native Americans?
it'd be favorable to the United. I'd be favorable to the United States because at the end of the day, like this is my home.
Right.
But at the same time, this was your
Their
home.
home. Right.
But like at the same time, this might be a bad analogy, but like the guy that lived at the house I own now, if he came back and said, "Fuck that, I'm taking my house back," I'm like, "No, motherfucker, this is my house now. I live here. I pay taxes. I fucking take care of this house. I take care of this yard, not you.
Right.
You can't have this fucking thing back. I respect that this was yours and you just want it to look good, but like, bro, like, no, this is mine."
Yeah. No,
So
I think it's
yeah,
a
I mean,
fair
I'd be
analogy.
empathetic to their plight, and I am empathetic to what they went through.
Mm-hmm.
But bro, at the end of the day, like, no, this is my home now. Like, that might sound callous and cold to say, but like, I don't really give a fuck what happened in 1492 because what happened in 1492 happened in
But I think that
1492.
I think I see what
Things
you're
change,
saying.
people change.
Right. I see what you're saying. But there was an agreement for him the previous owner to leave, right? It's not like you
Correct.
went in there and was like, "Yep, I'm you can have that room, you can sleep in the bathroom, whatever. The rest of it's mine."
Then that's a great counterpoint to that. That absolutely. And like I said, that might be a shitty.
It's
But
a close analogy, I would say, but
like I said though, like this shit happened hundreds of years ago, bro. Like that don't hold weight anymore, man. Like if you wanted it back, you had every opportunity to take it back.
or did they? Right?
I would argue that they had more opportunity back then than they do now. Because as a society, it's not just white Americans anymore. You have black Americans, you have Hispanic Americans, you have European Americans, you have so many people now that call this their home that this isn't the same place that the Native Americans once called home. This is now truly a cultural melting pot. And at the same time, don't you think that those Native Americans now that look at that might feel that way, or like, hey, our ancestors died and were treated so horribly, and that's fucked up. But look at what that achieved. Look at how beautiful this place is now. Everyone is accepted here to an
It's
extent.
subjective.
It's subjective, but everyone is accepted here, man. Like you can come from wherever you want in this world, and you will find a place in America. And yeah,
Unless you're Native American and don't have maybe the same traditions, then you can have this little plot of land that we call a reservation.
those are some beautiful plots of land. Have you ever seen one?
Yeah, they're absolutely yes.
They are gorgeous.
Right. No, I understand.
And they live
that.
there for free.
Well, they don't pay taxes.
That's what I mean by free.
Right.
You pay your house off.
Yeah.
You pay your house off. You have your home for free, but you're still paying land taxes, bro. You know what I mean? Like
Not on
no
the
matter what.
reservation.
But that's what I'm saying.
Right.
If you paid off your house tomorrow,
Here, where we're at.
yeah, like if Anthony Aquendo hit this house off tomorrow, he don't have a house bill anymore.
I still gotta pay
But
tax.
you still got that fucking property tax, bro.
Yeah.
Those Native Americans don't have to worry about that shit. So they are truly living free. You know what I mean? Like in my mind of what free
Monetarily,
is.
yes.
Monetarily, they're living free. And I just think that I think that Native Americans now would look at this and be like, hey, there's some fucked up things that happened to us as a culture, but that paved the way for all this beauty in this country. And it's a subjective beauty because there's a lot of bad shit that goes on in this country.
Yeah,
there
but
is
I
a
mean,
lot. It is not all rainbows and butterflies. It's not a fucking yellow brick road.
But do you think they're sitting there like, oh yeah, we got a good deal?
What don't they have access to that I do? I'm being genuine.
They're maybe just their old way of living, their old traditions, everything that they had in the past before the British decided and the Spaniards decided to sail over here.
That's a fair point, but I don't have access to some of the stuff I had access to when I was younger, and I'm not bitching about that.
Yeah, I think that's different though.
It is. But what I'm getting at is things change, times change, values change, right? I don't think a Native American looks at a white guy anymore and goes, that's a fucking white devil. Like, I don't think that they do. I think that there's a respect.
I imagine there are some out there.
There's probably.
But I I've never spent time on a reservation. I've been to reservations, driven through them, but I've never
gorgeous.
spent time on them. Never like spent time around the community
They're
of
wonderful
Native
people.
Americans.
Native
I know.
American people are.
I've been in the Marine Corps with them, which is, is to say a lot that they're
Yeah.
even willing to join the military.
But see, that's the other thing, though.
But you have some who are going to be
They're
are
gonna be
going
hurt.
to accept the culture
Yeah.
of the United States.
Yeah.
But I imagine there is a
there's white
decent
people
swath
that-
of them.
There's white people that don't want to accept the culture of the United States.
That's fair.
You know, like
That's fair.
anywhere you go, you're not going to have someone in a complete agreement with everything. I mean,
Oh yeah, 100%.
Look at our political system. Not everyone. I love being an American, but I don't agree with 98% of the shit that comes out of that man's mouth.
Yeah.
I don't support him, but I do support his right to say it and his right to lead our country because he was elected. So, hey, I might not like you, bro. I might not agree with it, but you're what I got. You know what I mean? So, and I hate those people that are like, fuck him, man. I hope he fucking dies. That's fucked up, dude, because at the end of the day, he's a human being.
Yeah, no, I don't wish death on anyone.
I don't wish death on anyone, man. It's just, it's fucked up. Like, but I don't think those Native Americans are necessarily sitting there and going like, you know what? We need to get things back the way they were 500 years ago. You know what I mean? Like,
There may be some.
there might be some,
There may
but
be
there's
some.
also some white guys that sit there like, man, the 1940s were a great time for this country.
1800s.
Hey, man, I remember when you had to drink at another water fountain. Those were the days.
I remember when my
Ignorant
great
as fuck.
grandfather used to tell me about those good old lynchings back then.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
Exactly. Like you're gonna have ignorant people,
Yeah.
and that's not to say that they're right or they're wrong, but it's like Hamas and Israel and Palestine. Some of the shit is ignorant. Some of the shit is valid. But at the end of the day, it's up to you as a person to do your research, do your work, and find the side that you agree.
So what do you think is the solution with Hamas and Israel? Is it a two-state solution? Is it a complete do you think they can live in harmony together?
Bring them together, bro.
Oh, I don't think Hamas. I think Palestinians. All right, so let me rephrase that. As far as
Palestine and Israel.
Palestinians and Israelis, do you think that they can live together in peace?
I think they can.
Or do you think? I don't know.
I think they can.
I'm not sure. I think
There was a time, dude, when they didn't think white people and black people could ever coincide. Ever. In this country, my dad has told me, because my dad's 73, bro. My dad was alive when that integration happened. And my dad will
right,
tell
but
you.
I mean, there wasn't a full-blown war between black people and white people.
There wasn't, but there was. There wasn't shooting, but culture wars. Fucking get the fuck off my land or I will kill you.
I think there's a difference between a culture war and a full-out, like,
but there was still
bombs.
hate. There was still displaced hate.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is, to be honest with you. I just
want people to be happy.
I just want there to be peace.
Yeah.
I mean, not
Peace,
everybody's going
that's
to be
the right
happy.
word.
Yeah, not everybody's going to be happy, but I just think I would like there to be peace. And I don't know if it's a one-state solution or a two-state solution or if I don't know. I don't know.
You know, at the end of the day, you don't like them, they don't like you, you don't agree with what they believe, they don't agree with what you believe. But at the end of the day, what's it fucking matter? What's it matter? Because at least in this country, you can believe what the fuck you want. I don't have to agree with you.
Right.
But that doesn't mean I have to hate you for it. That doesn't mean that we got to fucking stop talking over it. And it runs deeper than that with Palestine and Israel and Hamas and this, that, and the other thing. But at the end of the day, dude, if they can just come to an understanding that, hey, we're both going to be here. We're not going anywhere. You know what I mean? Like, you live there, I live here.
So is that a two-state solution then?
Sure, two-state solution. But live in peace, dude. Like, hey, I don't got to say hi to you at the supermarket, but
do you think there
don't
should
pull
be
out a gun and fucking kill me?
Real quick before we end this, because we're about there.
Oh yeah.
Do you think there needs to be intervention from the UN or some kind of other governing body that says, all right, look, here's the deal. Israel, this is your land. Palestine, this
Like an
is your
arbiter.
land. Yep.
I think it'd be a smart move.
I think it would have to be maybe two outside. Man, I feel like that may introduce even
Britain and
more.
America.
Fuck no, because you know how that's gonna. I mean, we already have an allegiance to Israel. The
That's
British already have an
true.
allegiance to
That's
Israel.
true.
So I think you would have to have a conglomerate of Muslim states and Western states.
That's a great point. Muslim state, someone that understands the culture,
Right.
someone that gets it.
And you would have to have the two conglomerates sit down and negotiate.
Negotiate in good faith.
Yeah,
With the
and that's
promise that no fucking shit's gonna happen on the outside. Like, hey, we're all gonna gather here.
like we're here for one agenda to resolve
Yeah.
this issue and create peace.
This is what it is. This is the issue. You know what the issue is.
But
We're
see,
gonna fix
I don't know
this
if
today.
I don't know if that would even be possible because there are too many agendas for each side, even with the Muslim states and the Western states. I don't think that. That's why I say I think it would. Yeah, I think there's a possibility for it to create even more conflict.
Oh,
But-
sure. Oh, it could.
But yeah, let us know what you guys think in the comments below if you haven't already. If you have gotten anything from this video, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you on the next one.
The next one coming soon.
Yeah, peace.